Miriam, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today with me.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here.
Let's jump right in because we first met at Alina Latina's New York virtual event. I immediately chatted you after hearing a little bit more about your story. And I said, can you please be on the podcast? I'd love to have you. I'd love to be in conversation with you and share you with the Humble Rising podcast listeners. So could you share, Miriam, more of your story, take us back, and then bring us forward to what you do now?
Yes, thank you. I'm a leadership coach and I help people transform their setbacks. For me, my parents are from Mexico and my grandparents and everybody. I was actually born in Mexico, and then my grandparents sent my parents here with me at 6 months old. So I'm very surprised that I even made it to the United States, but I'm very happy that I did because it's a very different life out there. I know that my life would be very different if I would have stayed in Mexico. And I take full advantage of all the opportunities that have been presented to me coming here to the United States. So I'm very grateful that they brought me over at 6 months. And I come from very humble beginnings, but I know that my past doesn't define my future. I started working right away at about 16 years old. I started at the World of Science. And that was a fun, nerdy job, but it was great because it's almost like people scout me. I was walking with my grandparents out of Aeropostale going to
I remember that store.
yeah, going to buy like sweatpants and jeans. And right outside, this woman, Christine, was outside and she said to me, "Hey, are you looking for a summer job?" And I was like, "No, but maybe I am now." We had a great working relationship. She actually wanted to make me a manager, but I was too young. I wasn't over 18 yet. So that was my first job. And then I ended up working at the airport for about 15 years. I worked my way up at Newark Airport, did customer service, manager, supervising, training. And then I ended up working for a transit agency here on the East Coast, and I'm an executive manager. On a personal level, though, I have three adult children. My son, Sam, who's 26, and my daughters, Rosa and Mitzi. They are 23 and 24, respectfully. Yes, and I'm a grandmother to Lily. I love my
Oh,
grandbaby. Yes, she's a doll, and I'm like so excited and happy to be a grandmother. And I'm also part of the LGBTQ community. My wife and I have been together for almost 2 decades. This year in September makes 19 years together, and I'm very grateful and happy that I found her because she helped me raise my children.
mhm.
So, I mean, we have a very unique, untraditional life, but we love it and we're very happy and excited. Yeah, so I live a full life. I have a full house, and I also have my little Yorkie. His name is Miko.
Miko, how old is Miko?
So Miko turned 2,
Oh, he's a
and
puppy. He's a baby. Well, not
yes,
really,
he's a
but
yeah.
and maybe just young. He's younger. He's younger on the younger side.
Yes, and we combined our names. So my wife's name is Carrie, and she was known as Tiny Tyson as a kid. So I said, "Oh, K.O." And then I'm called Mimi by my
Yeah.
family members. So I combined me and K.O., Miko.
Wait, so Miriam, I have to ask, what is the secret to staying together for almost 2 decades?
We are our biggest supporters, and we have never, ever been in competition with each other. And we have always understood our weaknesses and our strengths. And there were times where I needed her more. Obviously, I had 3 kids and she didn't. And she was there for me when I really needed her. And I've been there for her when she really needed me.
Mhm.
And we've been, there's times where you need to give more than you receive and vice versa. And the best part of it is that at the end of the day, we know that we love each other and we choose to be together because we have only each other at this point, too. And we've learned to grow as a couple together. We went through our immature ages in the 20s and then in our 30s. Now we're both in our 40s, so we're going through the aches and pains of our knees, and life looks different.
And before when you're 20, you could just move all kinds of ways. Then when after 40, you like move your neck the wrong way, and all of a sudden you're like, oh.
Yes, we laugh about that because we're like, instead of like having a great night or going out and partying, right now we're staying home.
Yeah.
To eat popcorn, have a glass of wine, or help give each other a massage because our bodies is aching, and it looks very different. But through every phase, we helped each other out, and we were there for each other through everything, through thick and thin.
I love that you said something really important of that sometimes you have to give more and then you're on the receiving side where the other person has to give more, and you kind of have to know when that give and take has to happen and how much time that has to take, like what season you're in your relationship. That's what I'm hearing. Miriam, tell us more about you getting into leadership coaching. Tell us more about that and then what you do in that space.
Leadership coaching came because I needed leadership coaching. So I was introduced I had a sponsor. So working with her was life-changing.
Wait, Miriam, let's define sponsorship for people who are listening.
Yes. So a sponsor is somebody who's in the room mentioning your name and giving you opportunities, and who says, you know what, this is the right person for this job. This is the right person who can execute. And I had that person. And what happened was she saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. And the potential was there. And she helped me be my most authentic self in all aspects, from my personal to my professional. And I exponentially grew through her coaching, and it was informal coaching. And then I said, you know what? I grew so much professionally and personally. I was more mature. I learned about conflict resolution. I learned about development programs. I started to duplicate myself in many different ways and avenues with the programs that I was creating. And I said, well, how do I take it to the next step? How do I do the same for others? And I became a Hudson certified coach. I took the certification and I became certified. And now I'm coaching others, which is amazing because I didn't have a Latina ever coach me or mentor me or be my sponsor. I never had that. And I said, you know what? Why not? I want to be that for others, right? And because I was seeing the results internally in my organization, I said, I want to do this externally and I want to reach wider and not so much higher, right? Now it's about wide and range. Impact. Yes. Impact has always been at the top of my list all the time.
Tell me more about why is it so powerful to be coached by another fellow Latina?
I mean, we understand each other on another level, right? We can talk to each other. So one thing that I could do with my coachees is my clients is I can speak to them in English and Spanish. So they can talk to me in their native tongue and I can understand what they're talking about, right? And when you don't have someone who's bilingual, sometimes you don't understand where they're coming from. And our culture, even though it's varied, right, there are commonalities, and it's just a commonality that you share with them. And also being an immigrant, you have that commonality, right? If you haven't experienced it, sometimes you don't know what that's like, or having immigrant parents, or right, I'm not first generation because I'm an immigrant myself, but at least I can help those others because there are firsts that they've had to do that I've had to do too.
Yes.
And so because we've navigated, cultural differences, it's just a lot easier for us to speak and to talk about our concerns. And we go through similar challenges. So because the challenges for minorities are different, I can relate to them and I can help them navigate it and come on the other side.
Yeah, there's something really special and like affirming when you are coaching another fellow Latina or first generation Latina and you see them. There's so much you don't have to explain about your experience because you understand what the stakes are and you understand the cultural beliefs, many of the cultural beliefs in the Latino culture that we were raised with, and you can see clearly like patterns. I think I can spot patterns more quickly. It's so powerful because I've seen it where I've had friends who have had executive coaches that weren't Latina, and it was a struggle of understanding. So I don't ever buy when people in the coaching community say, it doesn't matter what your personal experience is when you're coach, you can coach anybody. And I say, that's not true. Your personal experience absolutely matters.
Yes, it does. And that's the one thing that I always focus on is the our personal experience, right? Because even though we've gone through college, right? And I didn't go to college until my 20s after I had my kids were teenagers because I had to let it
Oh,
go.
oh, Miriam.
Yeah,
Wait,
so
wait. We have to talk about that, but go ahead. Let's talk about that.
yes, and so life experience to me means so much more than the book smarts, right? Like the life experience is lived and you understand it. There's something totally different when you go through it yourself
Mm-hmm.
that as opposed to, just talking about it or theoretically speaking. It's just so different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, take us back to that. Remember when you said you had your kids, then you went to college. So take us through that.
Oh, that was an experience altogether. So what was interesting is that I had just been promoted and I was traveling from New Jersey to LaGuardia for about 2 hours.
Oh,
So yes, I what I did is I once I saw the opportunity and I said, oh, I can go back to college because college has always been one of my main goals. And I was actually in school, but then right after high school, but then I ended up having my son, and unfortunately, he became very ill.
okay.
And I was unable to continue, and absent father back and forth, and I was having a lot of issues. And so then I took a break, right? When you're a mother, it's very hard to choose between your career and your kids. You have to make that choice. It's going to be your kids all the time. So I became a mother, took care of them, took full responsibility. And then when I went into this job that offered tuition reimbursement, as soon as I could, I I signed up. I started in
Mm-hmm.
January. By September, I was in school. And so then I had moved up the ranks. Every year and a half, I was promoted
Mm.
because I was on a mission. I was on a
Yeah.
mission to double my income because I had seen others do it,
Mhm.
and I did that. But then it was hard because my kids were teenagers, and I kept saying to myself, how am I going to go to school, work, get promoted, and then make sure that these teenagers are on point and don't
Mhm.
get into trouble, right?
Mhm.
So I had to really talk with my wife, and she has, like I mentioned before, just been always super supportive. And I took the plunge even to go work in New York, which was very hard, and I had to double on my classes at some point. So
Mhm.
on every Saturday night, what I did was my coursework.
Mm.
I did it virtually. I didn't even go to the school. I attended like an adult accelerated program,
Mhm.
and that's how I got my degree. And I missed an opportunity because I didn't have the degree. So that's why when I was traveling into New York, I decided that I needed to double up so that I didn't have that happen to me again where I couldn't qualify for a position. So
Yes.
at that time, it was really important that an imperative that I had the degree. So I needed it. And I'm an ambitious person. And when I have a
Yes.
goal, like I'm gonna find a way.
Yes. Looking back on that, I look at that and I'm like, oh no, I don't know if I could ever do that because I went to school, then I went to law school, and then I went into work, and then I had my kids in my 30s, and I have three as well. And I just think of how exhausted, like emotionally and mentally, it is to parent young children. And now, when people who have teenagers tell me, yeah, it doesn't get easier, it's just different. Like there are different challenges. And so I'm wondering like what advice you could give to the mothers who are listening, who work really hard and who are just trying to be good moms. Like they're just trying to be good to their kids, and they're not trying to do it all, but they're trying to be present. Like I think what you were saying is I was trying to make sure I had my finger on the pulse of my kids and I knew who they
Mhm.
were and I was helping them along in their lives, right? What advice would you give to them juggling it all?
So at the time, I was thinking I needed to be the role model for them. If I wanted them to go to college, I needed to show them the way that it could be done. And if I could do it working full time and traveling into New York, then they can do it too. And they had a different path for themselves because, like you said, it's very different what they want and what you want.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I said to myself, this is a goal of mine. The opportunity is here. How can I gain support? And so I
Mm,
think for us, it's very important that we don't take everything on ourselves. And my wife has always been supportive, and I kept the kids busy. So they were all in band. Two out of
mm,
the three were in band. So right after school, they were in band practice for
mhm,
hours on end. And then by the time I made it home, then they would be coming home after me. So they
mhm,
stayed busy and they focused on what they wanted to do, because one thing I always wanted to make sure that I didn't do was put pressure on them as to
mhm.
what I wanted them to be. I
Yeah.
always wanted them to find what was happiness for them.
Mhm,
And that comes from me advocating for myself, being part of the LGBTQ community. I needed to fight for that because my mother does not accept it.
mm.
She loves me, but she doesn't accept it and doesn't understand it. So I know how difficult it can be to want to do something that is important to you and other people don't understand it, especially your parents.
Yeah.
So for me, that was something that was critical. And I always wanted to make sure that no matter what, I did what I wanted, but that they could also do what they needed to do. And my wife was the number one supporter who, believe it or not, she has shift work and she
Mm,
is in airport as well, like operations. So our schedules don't always match. Sometimes I work days, she works nights, uh, but we made it work. And
mhm.
it was always a conversation with the kids too, bringing them in and telling them what the changes were, right? I always talk to them and ensure that I have their buy-in to what we're doing as a family and where it's going to take us as a family.
Yeah.
And they knew they had to uphold their part of the agreement with us in order for all of this to work for everybody.
Yeah, really operating as a team almost at
Yes.
home and including them instead of telling them this is what we're doing, including them and hearing them out and seeing them because they're part of the team. Like that's really special. I love that. Where did you learn how to do that, Miriam? Because now the books talk about stuff like that, but I don't think 10 years ago it was like that or even 20 years ago. How did you know to do that?
So my grandma and grandpa were the ones that took care of us as a family unit. Um, we came from nothing. My father was pretty absent in my life, and my grandma and my grandpa paid for our rent, made sure that we were taken care of, and they would always tell me two minds are better than one. And if we do it together, we're going to be much better than we if we were alone and did it by ourselves.
Mhm.
And they taught me that when our family would come from Mexico and they had nowhere to go, they would sleep on our couch. They would help them get a job.
Mhm.
They would help like get them started, and then they would move out to their own apartment. And so I learned to be just like that. And I was able to incorporate that in my own life and professionally.
That's so special. I think that a lot of mothers listening are thinking about how they want to role model certain things for their kids. And sometimes it can feel overwhelming because there's that saying that kids don't do what you say, they do what they see. And it's not what's taught, it's what's caught. And so I love that through all these shifts you had, you were including them and they were in there with you like you were a team. Miriam, when you talk about leadership coaching, there's this element of confidence in what you do to help women become more confident. Can you tell me more about the challenges you see that women, especially Latinas, have and how you help them through that? What are you seeing? And then how are they navigating through those challenges with respect to that confidence you're talking about?
what happens is that they don't realize everything that they do, and they
Yeah.
don't give themselves enough credit. The other part too is that they do for others before they do for themselves. And we're taught culturally to take care of our families, to take care of the men, right? I grew up like that.
Yes.
My brother is younger than me, but it was everything, whatever my brother and my uncle wanted, that's what they got, right?
Miriam,
My brother
Miriam,
wanted my bike, so he took my red bike. What do
to
you
this
wanted?
day, my mother will say, you know, you have to take, you remember to take the towels out of the dryer. And I say, ask my husband to do it. Ask, why do I have to always do it? And she always responds with an emoji of, ay, Dios mío.
See, yes, because it's so true. And so what I help them see is everything that they are doing, help them recognize their worth because they don't see it for themselves, or somebody hasn't seen them. Uh,
Mm, mm,
and I mirror that for them, and I help them see and let it flourish. And what I find is that they find their voice, and that's where the confidence comes from, because they don't even because a lot of times we're go, 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 go. We never stop, right?
mm,
It's like get up in the morning, get your kids ready, go to work, come back, take care of your mom, take care of your dad. Your brother needs something, the la tia calls you for something else,
mm,
or you need to go translate, you need to go understand this document, you need to call the doctor's office. But then when do you take care of yourself, and when do you recognize for yourself that you need something, that you need time? And my therapist helped me deal with that for myself, because I wasn't taking care of myself. I would pay, like I paid for my wife's massages, and she was like, well, why don't you pay for your own? And I was like, oh, you're right, maybe I should. But it just didn't come up,
yeah.
right? And I was like, okay, yeah, so why does my back hurt? Like
Yeah.
I should get a massage too. So now we both do. We don't have to go at the same time, and she does hers and I do mine. But again, somebody needed to bring that to my attention. And that's actually how I help other women do the same thing, help them with what they don't see, and help them look at their goals. Because I think a lot of times, like I said, they're just going, going, going. They don't look at their goals and what they want to accomplish. They don't even know what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what happens too? For instance, for myself, my adult children no longer need me in the same way that they did at one point. And that was really hard for me to let go. It was one of those moments where I was like deeply upset. I was hurt because I couldn't fathom not being a mother anymore. It's everything I've known my
Mm-hmm.
entire adult life. I've had my kids since I was 18 and a half, and my entire adult life I've been taking care of them. My entire childhood I took care of my mother. And so now I was without that. And I didn't even know what Miriam wanted. What did Miriam want to eat? I wouldn't eat to feed my kids. I wouldn't do certain things. And now through coaching, I help women help them see themselves and what their goals and needs are, and help them achieve it and find those supporters that they need to get it all accomplished.
I want to put an even finer point on what you're saying about the role of caregiving and how we over identify with it because it is so much of what we do at certain points in our lives. And for you, when you say you cared for your mother when you were a child, and then as you became an adult, you had your own child. So you were always all of your life in the role of a caregiver. And then your children now are older and now they take care of themselves. And you're now like, wait, so where do I fit? What do I want now? Well, who am I outside of this role as caregiver? And I find that that's true too for a lot of Latinas and a lot of women we coach is this over identification with certain things, that when that is challenged or when there's tension there, it's wait, who am I without that? Wait, what do I want outside of that role? And I find that your story is so interesting because you were always a caregiver, even as a child. And the experience you bring to your clients because of that perspective must be really profound.
Yes, And it's amazing to be able to help them see themselves and the transformation that happens from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
And then just being able to help them communicate their needs, right? Articulating what we want
Yes.
is a skill. And even just learning to listen to ourselves and what are we listening to is
Mm-hmm.
very important. And then being able to advocate for yourself is something that we have to fight for
Yes.
so much because we've been conditioned to ask for permission, to wear something, to walk a certain way, to go
Yes.
down the street. Can I, for women, it's very, a Latina woman is very different. The way that I grew up, I couldn't even go have a sleepover. I couldn't wear strappy shirts. I couldn't, it was always no, 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 no. And now it's more of like, okay, wait, you know what? I can wear that bathing suit and I will wear that bathing suit, or I can make a decision for myself. I can. And before too, women had to rely on men because there were laws against it. So
Mhm.
that's the other reason why our grandmas or parents maybe even had to learn to live under somebody else because they
Mhm.
had no choice. But we have choices.
Yeah, there's more economic power, like the potential for economic power. And so you have more choices because you don't, and I see this all the time of, now women, they don't have to get married. They don't, it's like, there's no, because before traditionally it was for a lot of economic reasons, like financial stability, but women are like, I can do that myself. So what do you bring into the table? Because
Right.
it doesn't have to be that anymore.
No, it doesn't. And see, that's why my relationship with my wife, we're both very independent. We're both ambitious, and she figures it out and I figure it out.
Yeah.
And then we come together and it becomes a whole party. So we're
Yes.
happy about that.
Miriam, let's switch gears and talk about your podcast. Tell me more about the origins of the Latina Mic Drop podcast, why you created it, and some of the work you're doing there.
Latina Mic Drop podcast started because I felt that I was being silenced and restricted. I'm a very creative person. And so I lost my sponsor because she was retiring. And that was a really tough time for me. And now needing to find my own self, stand on my own 2 feet and work on my own was something that was very difficult for me to transition into, right? When you have a sponsor, it's working well, things are moving, things are going, you have momentum.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, the momentum stopped, and I needed to reconfigure my life and what it was going to look like at work and separately. And then I was thinking, well, I'm not going to be silenced. How am I going to continue the conversation? And how can I ensure that people hear me out and know my story? And I want to help. I love to share information. I've always been the communicator in my family. Ay, Mimi, tan chismosa. That's what they would tell me. But I was like, I'm just sharing information. I'm sharing
I love that
information.
perspective, that reframe. I'm not chismosa. I'm sharing information. I'm just spreading the wealth.
Yes, right. Sometimes we need to know what's going on. I think you should know what's happening. And what happened to me too was that I went for a position and I was thinking, I already knew I wasn't going to get it. There was other people, right? But I was thinking, okay, so I let that go. I journaled it, my feelings out, let it go. And I was debating what I would name the podcast. And I said, well, I want to do a podcast. Should I label it Tattoos and Pearls like my book? But that for some reason wasn't feeling right to me. And then this job didn't go through. So I was journaling everything out. I let that go because I realized I was kind of putting myself in a box and I
Mhm.
needed to flourish outside of that box. And I'm getting the chills telling you the story because I'm like reliving that moment because
Mm.
I was sitting here journaling and then I got up and I went to the couch And I laid down and I just had this feeling of like when you have a mic and you just drop it and you just throw it on the floor. And I
Yes.
said, no, I am the person. Like I am a powerful woman. I am X, Y, and Z, right? Whatever I want to be, I can be. And then that's
Mm.
when I said, oh, it's going to be Latina Mic Drop. It's like dropping a mic.
Love
And
it.
that's what, like, I literally dropped the mic, like that. And I said, that's my power move, actually. And I
Mm.
always think that's how what helps me feel powerful. And that's my move that I do that helps me. And then after that, I said, oh, I got my name. I have the name
Mhm.
ready. I'm ready to go. And the following week, I just started recording and I put it out, which happened to be uh, right after Hispanic Heritage Month, because I
Mhm.
didn't want to do it purposely in Hispanic Heritage Month,
Yes.
because I wanted to start the conversation and continue the conversation, because we
Yes.
are not just only during Hispanic Heritage Month. We're all the time, right? How do
All
I
the time.
show up? Yeah. How do I
Yes.
show up? This is how I show up.
Miriam, hold on one second. Give me. The kids have a snow day today,
Mm-hmm.
and my husband's on a work trip. I have a 4 year old, a 7 year old, and a 10 year old. And I told the older two, hey, can you just make sure Tali is okay for the next hour? Just keep an eye out for her. Lo and behold, this 4 year old is, Mommy, Mommy, I need to eat. Mommy, Mommy, I need to eat. I'm like, do you can go get a snack? Go get a snack in the cabin.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I gotta go to the bathroom. And I'm like, you can go. But then it's, this is what it's like when you're at home and there's a snow day. The kids are like, yay. And you as a parent that's working is like, okay, we're gonna have to manage this today. So that's what you heard. You heard
Yeah,
my
I hear you. I had my granddaughter come up right before this, and I had to, because she has a snow day too, and I had to tell her, I'm gonna be recording. You can come after 1:30, 2 o'clock. She was, and then she came up here. Okay, can I take stick? Yes, you can take whatever you'd like here.
Miriam,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, take anything. Just take.
Yes. Don't worry, you could take it all. Take whatever you want.
I love the Latina Mic Drop. I love the origin story of that. And I don't want to zoom past something you said though, as you were sharing that story, because you said a few times, I was journaling my feelings. I want you to share because there's so many people who roll their eyes when we talk about journaling. They're like, I don't have time for that. I just can't do it. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. So I'd love for you to share how and when did you start journaling and why do you do that?
So journaling came to me because I had a hard time at work. And so when I was going through my difficulty, I was going home in on the train from New York into Jersey, and I was crying, right? So I was really hurt. It was a really hard day, and something just came over me to start writing in my phone and start writing in my phone. And I just put all my feelings out. And that actually was working for me because I forgot how much I loved writing.
Mm,
And writing was just something that was so important to me. And
mhm.
all my English teachers loved my work. And
Mm.
they like, even the English teacher nobody wanted to work with. They like, she was like, oh my goodness, this is so great. And I'm like, "Huh?" And people, my English teachers would ask me to always present my work after I wrote. And that moment, that's why sometimes, like, when you're in the most uncomfortable moments, you really need to dig in a little bit, because it's happening for you and it's a growth spurt
Mm,
that you're going through. And what happened is I started to write, and that's actually how I became an author. And then through therapy, right, I needed therapy when I started writing my book, because I revisited a lot of bad things that happened to me that I hadn't really exposed. Nobody knew but me, my wife. And writing was a way to get it out of my body.
mm,
It was transformational to let it go outside of my body, to actually let the feelings the emotions, right? Because you're going through the emotions and the thoughts and get it out on paper and face the truth of what you've been through
Yeah.
and face the truth of probably unfairness that's happened to you when you didn't have a choice. And now that's my medicine. That's how I take it out of my body because I can feel the heaviness,
Yeah.
and the heaviness dissipates after I let it go. And it actually helps me move on with my day. It helps me let the past go, accept where I currently am, and helps me move on.
Mm.
And writing for me, you begin to see the other side of it. And the other side of it, like I said, like the name just like dropped into my head, right? Like Latina Mic Drop. I did my power move and it came out. And look, and every time I mention it, oh my God, I love your name. I love the name. I love the name. And I'm so happy, and it was true to who I am,
Mm-hmm.
too. True to who I am. And when you do that, it's really, I can't say it enough. It's transformational to be able to write your feelings. You don't even need to share it with anybody. It's
Right.
really for yourself. And you going through your own emotions and feelings. People think that they shouldn't feel them, but actually just sitting with them and knowing it's a temporary moment in your life is like, it's just so, I find so much peace in it.
It I feel the same way about journaling. There are so many times where I'm going through something really difficult and I journal about it every day for a while. But it's not just one time. Like you're constantly, especially if you're perseverating on something and you're ruminating, and then a month or two later, you're not in that space anymore. But the journaling is cathartic because of what you said. We don't realize because we're not taught that our feelings are held in our body. Stress is retained in our body. And unless you, like you said, unless you release it, it's hard to fully let go of it because the mind only gets us so far. It's your spirit and your body. Everything is connected. And we're not taught this, right, Miriam? So we learn through experience and then we want to share it because we say, I know how this feels. I know what this is like. And here's what you can do to help yourself out. So, Miriam, for the podcast, what would listeners expect to hear on it? Give us some tidbits.
So I talk a lot about my own personal experiences and how I use the bad with the good, right? So I think about my own experiences. Maybe somebody was telling me that I'm too casual, right? But how do you reframe that? Like for me, I'm very relatable.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference, right? And so it's really just talking about real, authentic feelings, thoughts that come through our minds, and how you can reframe it to look at it differently. Because yes, we're going through similar things, but how we see it is what changes the perspective. It changes how we come across, it changes how we behave. And so I really want to be the person that can help you see it and help you understand that you're not alone.
Mm.
If you want that birdie to sing, girl, let that birdie sing. Find that inner warrior. If
Yes.
you're a fighter like I am, I've had to fight my entire life for every single penny I make, for
Mm.
the life that I live, for the job that I have. My children, my grandma was telling me, "You're so young. Maybe you should give your kids to your aunt." No, thank you. They're
Mm.
my children.
Mm.
They're staying with me. Yes, I am young, but we're gonna make it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is I want people to understand they're not alone. We get silenced sometimes, but you need to be able to find your voice. And I give a lot of leadership advice, or I talk about leadership a lot because all I did was learn about leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I read John Maxwell books.
Yes.
I love those books, and those were my teachers when I was learning. And now that I lead teams and I lead programs, I just 100% see the changes in people. People are getting promotions, people are walking differently, people are speaking differently. And what I want to do is share the information that I have. And I've always felt like I always just have so much to say. So every week you can tune in and, I try to make it also about what's going on currently. I talk about my immigrant experience. I talk about being a leader, being a Latina, being a woman, being part of the LGBTQ community, not being accepted, building your community, a lot,
It's all there.
all there, all
And
there. I
real,
don't
real
hold
and
back.
raw. I love that. We need more of that from so many people. Now, you've talked a little bit about your book, Tattoos and Pearls. Can you talk more about the book and what it's about and why you wrote it, and where people can find it?
The book is going to come out on March 15th. So it's not even out yet.
Hold on, Miriam. Hold on. Hold on. This is why I was like, why can't I find this book? Where is this book? This is why it comes out in March. And okay, I'm excited because I'll be promoting this book like crazy. Tell me more about why you wrote the book, what it's about.
Yeah. So like I said, I was going through this transition at work, and I was having a hard time. And I was thinking, how can I share? How can I voice, and I learned from another person that I worked with who her voice was out. She was like writing articles, and she was doing advertisements, right? She was like promoting herself. And I said, there's something to that. You know what? Why can't I do that too? So I started researching and started looking, and I said, how can I do this? What can I do? I love John Maxwell, right? Like going through his stuff out of nowhere, coaching, everything came all together. And I was looking through Maxwell coaching, and here pops up Latinas 100, uh, Adriana Rosales, submit your story on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this is interesting. Let me send my name. Who you don't know, right? Maybe I'll become published one day.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened is that, see the book behind me, Leaving a
Yes.
Legacy and
Yes.
Inspiring the Next Generation.
Yep.
So I received a last call email when I was crying on the train, and to submit my story. And I submitted my story, and I got in the book, and I became published for the first time. And then me getting to know the book coach, I started to say, oh, this is another Latina. She's Mexican. She's a publisher. Why not work with her?
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, I've had the name Tattoos and Pearls for 12 years in the back of my head. Just the
For a
title.
book. For a book.
Yes, just the title. And so she goes, do you have a title that you're thinking about? And I was like, yeah, Tattoos and Pearls. What? Why? You have a title already? We're
She's like,
just
I've been
having
thinking
like,
about this for 12 years.
and you know what? What's funny is that I wasn't thinking about it. It was just in the back of my head. And so what
Wait,
happened?
you mean like not consciously?
No,
Okay.
no, no. Let me
Okay.
tell you the story. What happened? I started my new job, right? My career, the new position that I had. And the manager was talking to me. We were getting to know each other a little bit about myself, right? My kids and all this other stuff. And she actually tells me, you should write a book with all those stories that you have and everything you've been through. This was like literally like a 10-minute conversation. I didn't go like too deep. This is work, right? You don't go too deep.
You're like, and I gave her like not much.
And then I have this tattoo on my wrist.
Mm-hmm.
And at the moment, I had a pearl bracelet on. And she said, we were signing paperwork, and she says, oh, you should write a book. Maybe you should call it Tattoos and Pearls.
I can't. I can't.
And that's when the it can't, like I said, I think I'm always scouted. It's almost like those signs are coming, and when you
Yes.
really need to pay attention to life, because life is
Yes.
talking to you all the time,
Yes.
all the time. And so we were thinking about, my book coach ended up getting to know me, and she was saying, how about something about your background, how you started, and your professional life? So then we started talking about it and started looking, what is your goal? What do you want to accomplish? And I'm like, well, I want it to be for the underserved, for the people that are silenced, disregarded, right? People who are not heard or seen,
Mm.
people that are not heard and seen. And she said, okay, let's work through like a subheading. And she came up with, we started working together, combining street wisdom with corporate strategy.
Mhm.
So it was like where I started and how I used what I started, that life experiences, and bridging it together into what I currently do now. And so what I think about is how experiences mark us for life.
Mm.
There are sometimes some permanent changes, right? Permanent, like your tattoos, permanent
Yeah.
changes that happen. And what is the wisdom that we learn from all these experiences?
Yeah.
And that's how it came together.
Miriam, I'm so looking forward to reading this. It's going to be so good. I'm
Thank
so
you.
excited. Also, can I just say, for those who are listening and you're not watching this, Miriam showed a tattoo on her wrist. How painful was that? How painful? Because it's thin, it's all bone there.
I don't even remember. I think I have a high tolerance for pain. I actually
Yeah.
have 5 tattoos. People normally don't see them, and I usually don't share them. And I've always hidden it actually because
Mm.
of my corporate job. And even I worked in customer service, you couldn't even show the tattoo. And
You
it's
weren't allowed
indicative of
to.
what I like, which are the flowers.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
my
see.
daughter is named Rosa and my
Oh, yes.
granddaughter is named Lily. So it's
Yes.
a vine of roses going around my wrist.
I love that. I was like, oh, it's so thin, What a memorable story, right? You should call your book, Oh, Tattoos and Pearls. And then when this publisher says, what would you name the book? You're like, Tattoos and Pearls, obviously.
She's like, huh, what? I didn't even have
I
to work
know.
on
What?
that. Yeah, I
I
didn't even
love
have to
it.
work on that part.
I love it. Tell me more about what you're looking forward to in the year ahead. I know you have your book coming out, so I'll look forward to promoting that and sharing that with everyone. But what else are you excited about?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about working with Lean In Latinas New York.
Yep.
It's a new circle that we just created. And so I'm the co-lead with Hari Mendez.
Mhm.
And we're really excited and we're gearing up our calendar. We're right before this, we were talking about our calendar for the spring, summer, fall. And I'm really looking forward to going out and meeting new people, continuing on my journey to reaching wider and not higher. Because it's
Mhm.
very important for me to see people and connect with them in a way. I find that every time I speak to them in person, there's always somebody who comes up to me and is literally in tears.
Mhm.
Something that I share always, hits them in the heart. And I really just want to connect with people. My grandma showed me that very young. The connection is so important. And I'm really looking forward to being able to be there for people, be that inspiration, be the joy and happiness. And, have real conversations about the real things that we go through, not hide it. Sometimes
Mhm.
we're taught that you can't talk about specific things. And through my book, you'll see how I was able to go through what I've been through and
Yeah.
then now come out on the other side. And there are going to be some tough conversations that people are going to be able to have,
Mhm.
because it's very important for us to be able to share. We're going to share with everybody. You're going to share with who you feel comfortable. And I'm looking forward to the reactions to the book.
Oh, I can't wait to get my hands on it. And I'll be sure to share it with everyone. And if people can pre order it, we'll share that link in the show notes as well. Miriam, where can people find you?
So on social media, I have author Miriam Simon. I have my website, miriamsimon.online. And you can also find me on YouTube. The podcast is available wherever you follow podcasts. So Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, iHeart. And I'm just on everything, like all social media, LinkedIn,
You're
all over the
everywhere,
place.
Miriam.
Yes, I want to be everywhere. I want to be everybody's friend. I need friends. I'm a grown woman with very little friends because I was raising my children, and now I'm ready to explore and be out there and really be there for my community. I really want to be there for them. I really want to be able to help and serve.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important to me because of the impact, and we need it now more than ever.
Yes, we need you. Yes, absolutely. Miriam, thank you so much for this conversation. I had so much fun and I learned a lot. I learned so much about you too. Thank you so much for being here. And I will be talking to you soon.
Yes, thank you so much for having me and the invitation. It's a pleasure.